Hello, and welcome to an episode of The Horrid Girls Do an Interview. My name is Geri Austin, and I am half of The Horrid Girls. And today we are here with Den of Geek, and we are interviewing Paul Rashid from Run, a new interactive horror game interactive experience film. It is available on Apple iStore and Google Play. We get to talk about the project, his horror origin story, the juicy bits, Prairie Dog meter, how bangable is the villain, Nightlight meter. We kind of dive into everything. I have a really good time. Obviously, Harley is not here. She is off being a movie star filming, and so I am tackling this one solo. Final girl vibes. Now that she died. She will be back. So, yes, enjoy! The Horrid Girls Podcast. Well, thank you so much for joining again. So I'm so excited to dive into Run and what you've created, and this app is it's really innovative and very cool. Before we dive into that, I'd love to chat a little bit about your origin. So your horror origin, if you will, if you're really into the genre when you were a kid, or if there was something that incited your love for something scary.
Yeah, so that's it's such a layered relationship that I've had with horror that kind of does go back to when I was younger, and I guess I can really track it through like the eras, I guess, because I'm 32 now, about to be 33. So when I was growing up, you had the wave of Hollywood horror films like The Ring and The Grudge, which are obviously remakes of J horror. So then it's kind of like a gateway into horror from around the world. So it started with those sort of like supernatural horrors that were kind of my first sort of thing that I really liked. The films like The Others came out when I was younger as well, which was
that was one of my favorite. Although that ending was just like unparalleled.
I know. It was and it was kind of like a more of a slow burning horror that was also really accessible as for a younger viewer. I think that's why I really liked it as well. So I think that that's kind of where it started, and then I got into slasher films. So obviously I read Scream. The meta element to it, I think, is just it's never been done as well as that, even to this day. Obviously your classics like your Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween's, and then sort of there was that wave in the early 2010s, I want to say, where you had kind of the more, a lot of people don't like the term elevated genre, but they were the kind of the films that fell into that. Like, It Follows, The Babadook, those kinds of films.
Sure, yeah.
I guess I've always, I've made horror films before The Run as well, which was sort of kind of different types of horror. I've done a supernatural horror. I've done a kind of more sci-fi horror, which was White Chamber, which had elements of horror in it as well. So I don't know. I kind of, it's a journey through the eras of different phases of horror that kind of have gone with me through my journey and in life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like horror is so evocative, and it really is like a mirror for not only wherever we're at as society, but also, I don't know, my emotional state, like the way that I process things, or the things that really scare me are dependent on what's happening in my life or what's happening in the world, or, what's going on. And that's like the coolest thing I think about horror is how much it does that as a vehicle.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. And so just in terms of your approach to horror, or, like how you dive into a story, because you wrote Run as well. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so approaching it as a screenwriter and then directing it, what is your approach to filmmaking in that way? And I want to talk specifically about Run because I feel like it presented additional challenges, I'm sure, by the nature of how you were doing it, but just in general, what is your approach to doing both concurrently or elevating your own stories?
I think it really also it depends on the type of horror that you're making. I think with The Run, it was very much it was so action heavy and gory. It was the goriest horror that I've made in a while, So I think the things that I did previously, if you're making a supernatural horror, your approach has to be different in terms of how you pace things, what kind of the nature of coverage, because in the edit it's about building suspense and building tension that either pays off with a dare I say, jump scare or not a jump scare. That's where the terror comes from. It's in the light. You take more time with lighting and mise en scène and all those things. Whereas I think with White Chamber, which was a lot more, that was a little more gory and a little more in your face. And then obviously The Run, which is action heavy and gory and, almost kind of more in the slasher genre, like
Yeah.
direction. So I think a lot of it really does depend on the subgenre, subcategory of horror that you're working in. And I think, with The Run, obviously it did have different challenges with regards, obviously, as well, the locations we were in and the action, the fact that the character is always running, that changes, the decisions that you make in terms of the cinematography. And you can't, you're with natural light a lot of the time. So I think in terms of the pacing, I would approach a film like The Run a lot differently than I would a supernatural horror film in a haunted house.
Yeah.
In terms of sort of what type of coverage I need, what type of performances I would need from the actors. The stakes are always kind of right up there all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas they may be a bit more sporadic in a supernatural because there's that psychological play where the characters are contemplating whether it is real or not real. So I think that yeah, it really does depend on the subcategory, subgenre of horror that you're in. So The Run was very specific in that sense that it was kind of like, it was fast paced, it was high stakes, the energy always had to be high. You almost had to approach it like it was an action film and a thriller film, which, it kind of, if you were to name the genres that it kind of falls under, it
Yeah.
does also fall under those as well. So yeah, it's kind of horses for courses would be the phrase I'd use.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, let's dive into The Run. So, can you give us like a little synopsis of what The Run is for folks who haven't enjoyed it yet?
Yeah, so The Run is an interactive horror thriller about a fitness influencer who goes on a run in the Italian mountains, and eventually she witnesses a murder and gets pursued by four masked killers. And the interactive element is that you, as the viewer, have to make choices for her on her journey that will determine whether she lives or dies.
Yeah, it's wild. It's such a fun format, and I think as I was watching, I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting to engage with." Like, I started to get more invested. I feel like than in other mediums because
Mhm.
I was a part of it, and especially as it goes, it feels like you play more of a part of,
Mm.
like, even in, like, the fighting sequences, I was like, "Oh, this
Mm.
is fun," and I have, like, any kind of limited control over what happens and then
Yeah.
see what the outcome is. So how did you design that? Because it feels like you're making, I don't know, like, infinite many versions of the same film, right? Depending on which track people go on and, exploring the map is so cool. And so, yeah, I guess I'm wondering what your approach to that was.
Yeah, totally, Jerry. I mean, I think I've been doing interactive. I've been in the interactive format since 2019. So it wasn't sort of my first rodeo. So I've kind of learned things along the way. And but the things you can't get around are you do need to shoot more coverage. Like that's just
Yeah.
I think The Run overall is like a pool of like 3.5 hours of edited footage that
Wow.
and then one playthrough will be about 75 to 80 minutes. It's
Yeah.
still a feature length, but that it's from a pool of, over 3 hours of content that you can experience in different combinations. So the way I design it is sort of always like a flowchart, like a big kind of
Totally.
matrix like flowchart where you've got like a scene and then it branches to another scene, and it branches to another scene, and it branches to another scene. So you kind of that's your roadmap, so to speak, which interestingly, The Run is the first time I was then able to like build a world map. So I think because I have the beauty of the format that I love as a creative, as someone who sort of has been a casual gamer all my life, you get to take storytelling elements from video game structures and incorporate them into cinematic storytelling, which you obviously can't do normally in a film. So you're borrowing a whole new vocabulary and a whole new kind of storytelling device that you never have access to otherwise, which is what I really like. So things like story maps and consequences and deaths, being able to unlock different, unlock, and then you want to incentivize the viewer to go back, and if they want to see all the
Right.
they're gore lovers, they're like, maybe they want to go back and see all the 20 different ways that she can die, or they want to they want to unlock the full story map, or they want to play
Right.
a thing where you don't die at all. So I think being able to really tap into the things that motivate gamers and give that to a film viewer is what really, really excites me. And being able to use that toolkit is what I love about this format, and I think really suited the story of the run.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And I guess I'm curious when did you decide that there would be a choice point for the viewer? Like what
Hmm.
Yeah, like what? Because I was curious as I was going through it. I was like, oh, okay, some of these are emotional choices, some of them
Mm,
are action oriented choices. And so
hmm.
we're kind of playing in both spaces, but like what's the impetus for like, oh, we need a choice here, or this feels
Yeah.
like a fissure point for the
Mm.
character that could go either way.
Yeah, so it's a really good question. And I think this is what I always say to people. I'm like, it's actually no different to the way you would approach like a linear traditional film in
Yeah,
terms of storytelling, because most of the when you're setting off as a writer, kind of one of the main things you're told is that your protagonist always needs to be making choices that
right.
that affect
Totally.
the story. So you need to do that anyway as the basis of a good linear
That's
story.
true. Yeah.
So you just basically, you wouldn't, I just approach it in the same way. And then you think about pacing. It's like, okay, what's the frequent, how often is my character constantly making choices that are then affecting the plot? But in this case, I just get the chance to then give that choice, the agency of that choice to the viewer. So I would approach it structurally in the same way that I would approach writing a linear story, in terms of how I would space and where I would put the character making the choices. And then you just, that's okay, that's a great point, and you just branch off, and then that's a great point, you
Yeah.
just branch off. So yeah, it's kind of wasn't really a different way of thinking than kind of what I was thinking
Yeah.
before.
I was funny as the viewer and the participant. I think there's a lot of times that I can critique horror, especially when it's a female protagonist, of like, of course they're going to go into the scary room, or they're going to go into the door, or they're going to do the thing that's like, you wouldn't do that. You should
Yeah.
leave. That doesn't make
It's
any sense. But as a viewer, I kept being like, well, this is the more interesting choice.
exactly, and that is,
So,
you've literally hit the nail on the head about the beauty of horror, and like the I need to swear, the bullshit of what people say about
yeah,
like, oh, why do they do that? Why do they investigate the noise? But if you give people the choice to do it, they're gonna do it.
they're
Like,
going to do
so
it. Yeah.
yeah, so what do you guys want? That's
Right.
my
And it's like she can like regenerate, I'm like, obviously the stakes for me aren't real, for her and the world is real. And so I'm like, yeah, I want to see what's in the creepy like tunnel or basement, or
exactly,
to know
yeah.
what the smell is.
Exactly, yeah.
So that makes it like super fun and engaging. And I do think it like, yeah, it's like it pokes at the parts of my brain that are like devious.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly. And some people will play it, and yeah, it's an interesting thing, because you see when people play it on their own, they're kind of like, all right, let's just see if we can get a kill. Let's see if what happens here. Whereas if they're in a group, they're kind of like, okay, let's try and keep her alive. Let's play it like the way you would the decisions that a conventional film character would make to
yeah.
survive, right? And it's really interesting seeing that difference between, if people left to their own devices, people kind of, it's like playing a video game. It's like playing,
Right.
GTA.
Yeah.
If you let people run around a city and can do whatever they want, they'll try and cause mischief, right? So
Yeah. Cause a ruckus. Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
And so there is a group format that's associated with it as well.
Mhm.
How does that work?
So yeah, so that's something, the interactive cinema screenings is something we've been doing for like my past sort of two or three titles, where it's kind of quite a lo-fi way of doing it, that we give glow sticks to all of the viewers going into the cinema, and every time a choice comes on screen, it pauses at the end of the thing, and then they get the chance, they vote for which choice that they want to happen. So they decide it as a group. So it's like this really fun.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it's super fun, and we've been doing it for the last few years here in London, and everyone seems to have a really good time, because it's not only is the story, the film itself is interactive, but it's interactive in the sense that it makes it a communal cinema experience that, people, because you're seeing what everyone else is voting for. So like, you can hear people actively laugh if it's like, oh, do we investigate the smell? And everyone puts their glow stick up, and then there's an interact there's an extra element within the interactivity of that people will laugh or groan, or some people shout out being like, why are we doing that kind of thing? So it's it's a very participative, fun kind of experience.
I almost feel like that could be it doesn't have to be a drinking game, but I almost feel
Mm,
like it's something like that, right? Where
yeah, yeah.
everybody is like participating. It's like drink every time she dies or something.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, these are things that you can experience as a group in loads of different settings,
Yeah. That's so
as
cool.
well
I
as
didn't
on
even
your own.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. What that makes the movie going experience, I feel like, even more
Mm,
fun because then
yeah,
yeah, you're a part of it, and then the group mind is so interesting to play with too,
yeah.
which is so
It's
cool.
absolutely.
Well, here at the Horror Girls, we rate horror by thirst, thrills, and nightmare fuel, and so we have some really high bar metrics that we rate our any kind of film that we watch. So I'd
Okay.
love to take you through the metrics and see where Run stacks up if you are
Please
ready.
do. I'm so ready for it.
Okay. So the first one is the Prairie Dog meter. So it is a prairie dog is like if the poop is coming out of your butt from jump scares. So like how much are we gonna shit ourselves in this run experience? How many jump scares like is it that kind of frightful experience, or is the poop staying in the body? So
I
where would you rate Run?
I think we got some solid jump scares in there. I don't think it's like it's the main, tool that we use in terms
Yeah.
of the horror. It's not the main device that we like to use, but I think there's some solid ones in there.
Yeah.
I think there's a one that involves like, the bit with the dog. Spoiler alert, and the dog, like, some of the lower stakes one, but then I think there are also some like, higher stakes
Yeah.
ones that make people jump. But I wouldn't say it's my. So what's the metric scale? Is it like 1 to
It's
5 or 1 to
literally no, it's not. It is abstract of like how much poop is coming out. Is it staying in the body? Is it poking out like a prairie dog?
Yeah, I would say like
Very scientific.
yeah, I'd say like, maybe like a couple of like, times that your stomach will drop a little bit, but I don't think that I think you're okay. You're not going to need
Yeah.
to leave the cinema to
Yeah.
change or like, run to the bathroom for anything.
Yeah.
I think you'll have a couple of close calls, but I think you'll be generally okay.
Yeah, I think it's poking out a little bit. There's a
Yeah.
couple of really nicely timed jump scares, and I think like even the expanse of some of those aerial shots that you do of
Mm.
showing the landscape are
Mhm.
so beautiful and also terrifying to be
Yeah.
like you're just alone in
Yeah.
that vast expanse.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the second one
Mhm.
is our martini meter, and that is how bangable is the villain. So that is like how many martinis or what kind of beverage would you need in order to bang the villain?
The
And
four villains.
yeah, there are four villains. I think it's that mask we can really talk about of like how
Yeah.
scary is that mask and how
Yeah,
bangable
yeah.
is that mask. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love them all. I think they're four sexy, sexy villains who are all very physically capable, and like, they are all really good at their very specific skill sets of killing. So
That's
I think
true.
they're all pretty damn sexy and
So
bangable, if you
no
ask me.
no martini is needed.
No, absolutely. Stone cold sober. Tap water. Tap
Yeah.
water. Yeah.
I would say like the tap water. I would say like even the detail in the mask is really cool. Like it feels
Mm,
very like mercenary almost, but then
mm.
like haunted, demon, and I'm into it. Yeah.
Yeah, they were all four of them actually based on the four horsemen of the apocalypse, because of the biblical. I mean, spoiler alert again, but because of the biblical links, they so the color of them, is in the Bible. All the different horsemen were said to all ride on four different color horses. So, and their masks, the color reflects the color of the horses. So the red one is war, so that's the big guy, and pestilence is white, so that, and it's kind of a more emaciated mask. And then you've got famine, who's the darkest one with the kind of screaming people. And then you've also got death, who's the green mask. So that's
That's
the
cool.
kind of a little bit more backstory about why they all the four different looks.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
attention to detail is so neat. And then the way they execute or their specific skill set matches that.
Yes, exactly. So
Oh.
exactly that it's like very archetypal, a kind of like, but also again it goes in the gaming. They're kind of like boss fights. So one of them's a bit more stealthy, one of them is fast, one of them is just a brute, and then one of them's like the leader and has like a gun. So it's leaning into that kind of archetypes as well.
Yeah, that's so fun. Amazing. And then our last one is our nightlight meter. So is this going to give you nightmares? What kind of nightlight are you going to need in order to enjoy this type of interactive experience?
I mean, I think if it's something, if it's a world, the world of fitness, of running, of
Hmm.
trail running, if that's something that you're somewhat familiar with, or like have some kind of experience with, or like to go on runs on your own, or
Yeah.
late night runs, I think that's definitely gonna freak you out.
Yeah.
I think if specifically you're into that kind of stuff, and especially if you're, are you in LA, Jerry?
I am in LA.
You know,
Yeah.
trail running is like such a big thing, you know. So I feel like to a certain audience, if people can, relate to that kind of lifestyle, then I think it definitely is pretty. It will keep you up at night.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Just even the concept that she would be out there completely, like without it feels like anybody even knowing where she was. I was like, what are the safety measures that have taken place here?
Yeah,
But I was in the hills, in the Hollywood Hills last night, and it was
yeah,
so quiet.
yeah,
Even though it's like more suburban, you're still in the mountains. And I was like, oh, this, I feel creeped out.
yeah. I mean,
I'm like,
trail runners, people just will they go into the wilderness, man. Like I did a lot of research into them, and like they're fearless. Like they
it's
don't care.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really honestly like it is terrifying. I think it is that idea of like getting lost and then also having to like fight for your life, but there you don't even know that right if you get off the trail, then you're just
yeah.
sort of fucked.
You don't know what's there. Yeah, you don't know what's there. You don't know where you're going. You don't know where you don't know civilization could be, 10 minutes away. It could be 10 hours away. Like you just don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And talking about remote cities, like that's such a remote, tiny place of
Mm,
Italy, it seems,
mm.
where, she was saying like most of the people are much older too. So
Yeah,
it's like,
which was true. Yeah,
yeah,
it was
that's
true.
crazy. Did you film like that? Is that a real city? And is that a
So
real.
it's a real town. It's not called Libitina, but it is a real town. Yeah, yeah, it's a real town, and it's absolutely stunning. As you saw, all of the places we saw there were absolutely stunning and very safe. But like I would go for an isolated run in that, like that where she was running. When you're there, it feels
It
very
feels unsafe.
safe, but then you do realize you're kind of like, I am out in the middle of nowhere. If you like really deep it, you're kind of like, oh, okay, actually, this
Yeah.
could be very unsafe, So, but it was a wonderful place to film and an amazing experience.
I can only imagine. Okay, last question. What is your dream way to die in a horror movie? If
Oh
you
man, maybe falling. Maybe falling from a really somewhere really high. That would probably be it. I mean, I'm like in the run, I've done lots of ones where you get bludgeoned to death, and
yeah.
you get your neck snapped. You get it gets very gory. So I would say something like falling from a really high place and
Yeah.
then going splat.
Going splat. And then you get that
Yeah,
moment of like in the air where we get to
exactly.
before
Yeah,
a lot. Yeah. That's pretty
exactly.
satisfying. Okay. You
Yeah,
get to fly before you die.
exactly. Exactly.
Well, this has been so delightful. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for chatting about it. Do you want to let people know how they can check out the run? Yeah, where could they can experience it?
Yeah, absolutely. The run is available on your iOS, from your iOS store to download as an app. If you have an Apple phone, or if you have an Android phone, it's on the Google Play Store. So just search the Run interactive film, and it'll come up, and you'll be able to download it and take it wherever you want to go and play it / view it. So
Amazing. And
yeah.
where can people find you if they want to check out more of your work?
If they want to check out more of my work, the best place probably Instagram, where I'm most active, and it's just my name at Paul Rashid, PaulRashid, and then I have a website, paulrashid.com, if you want to see, a show reel and all the other stuff I've done and links to those things as well.
So cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm so excited to keep playing with Ron.
Yes,
I've
please.
only died a couple of times, so I got
Oh
to
no,
experience
you
all.
got 18 more ways to
Yeah,
find out. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Thank you so much, Jerry. This has been
Yeah,
so much fun. Thank you so
awesome.
much.